Welcome to another relaxing video. Today we're going to read more Skyrim lore, and specifically dragon lore. Before we start though, don't forget to subscribe for more ASMR gaming content. And now, let's get started. The Book of the Dragonborn by Prior Emmeline Madrine, Order of Talos. Many people have heard the term Dragonborn. We are of course ruled by the Dragonborn emperors, but the true meaning of the term is not commonly understood. For those of us in the Order of Talos, this is a subject near and dear to our hearts. And in this book, I will attempt to illuminate the history and significance of those known as Dragonborn down through the ages. Most scholars agree that the term was first used in connection with the Covenant of Akatosh, when the blessed Saint Alessia was given the Amulet of Kings, and the dragon fires in the Temple of the One were first lit. Akatosh, looking with pity upon the plight of men, drew precious blood from his own heart and blessed Saint Alessia with this blood of dragon, and made a covenant that so long as Alessia's generations were true to the dragon blood, Akatosh would endeavor to seal tight the gates of oblivion and to deny the armies of Daedra and undead to their enemies, the Daedra-loving Aelids. Those blessed by Akatosh with the dragon blood became known more simply as Dragonborn. The connection with the rulers of the empire was thus there from the beginning. Only those of the dragon blood were able to wear the Amulet of Kings and light the dragon fires. All the legitimate rulers of the empire have been Dragonborn. The emperors and empresses of the first Sinodilic Empire founded by Alessia, Reman Cyrodiil and his heirs, and of course Tiber Septim and his heirs, down to our current emperor, His Majesty Pelagius Septim IV. Because of this connection with the emperors, however, the other significance of the Dragonborn has been obscured and largely forgotten by all but the scholars and those of us dedicated to the service of the blessed Talos, who was Tiber Septim. Very few realize that being Dragonborn is not simply matter of heredity. Being the blessing of Akatosh himself, it is beyond our understanding exactly how and why it is bestowed. Those who become emperor and light the dragon fires are surely Dragonborn. The proof is in the wearing of the amulet and the lighting of the fires. But were they Dragonborn and thus able to do these things? Or was the doing the sign of the blessing of Akatosh descending upon them? All that we can say is that it is both and neither a divine mystery. The line of septims have all been dragonborn, of course, which is one reason the simplistic notion of it being hereditary has become so commonplace. But we know for certain that the early Cyrodiilic rulers were not all related. There is also no evidence that Reman Cyrodiil was descended from Alessia, although there are many legends that would make it so, most of them dating from the time of Reman and likely attempts to legitimize his rule. We know that the blades, usually thought of as the emperor's bodyguards, originated in Akaviri crusaders who invaded Tamriel for obscure reasons in the late First Era. They appear to have been searching for a dragonborn. The events at Pale Pass bear this out, and the Akaviri were the first to proclaim Reman Cyrodiil as dragonborn. In fact, it was the Akaviri who did the most to promote his standing as emperor, although Reman himself never took that title in his lifetime. And of course, there is no known hereditary connection between Tabes Septim and any of the previous dragonborn rulers of Tamriel. Whether there can be more than one dragonborn at any time is another mystery. The emperors have done their best to dismiss this notion, but of course the imperial succession itself means that at the very least there are two or more potential dragonborn at any time, the current ruler and his or hers heirs. The history of the blades also hints at this. Although little is known of their activities during the interregnum between Reman's empire and the rise of Tabes Septim, many believe that the blades continued to search out and guard those they believed were, or might be, dragonborn during this time. Lastly, we come to the question of the true meaning of being dragonborn. The connection with the dragons is so obvious that it has almost been forgotten. In these days, when the dragons are a distant memory, we forget that in the early days, being dragonborn meant having the dragon blood. Some scholars believe that was meant quite literally, although the exact significance is not known. The Nords tell tales of dragonborn heroes who were great dragon slayers, able to steal the power of the dragons they killed. Indeed, it is well known that the Akaviri sought out and killed many dragons during their invasion, and there is some evidence that this continued after they became Reman Cyrodiil's bodyguards, the direct predecessor of the blades of today. I leave you with what is known as the prophecy of the Dragonborn. It often said to originate in an Elder Scroll, although it is sometimes also attributed to the ancient Akaviri. Many have attempted to decipher it, and many have also believed that its omens had been fulfilled, and that the advent of the last Dragonborn was at hand. I make no claims as an interpreter of prophecy, but it does suggest that the true significance of Akatoshi's gift to mortal kind has yet to be understood. The Prophecy of the Dragonborn. When misrule takes its place at the 8 corners of the world, when the brass tower walks and time is reshaped, when the thrice blessed fail and the red tower trembles, when the dragonborn ruler loses his throne and the white tower falls, when the snow tower lies sundered, kingless, bleeding, the world eater wakes, and the wheel turns upon the last dragonborn. Olaf and the Dragon by Adonato Liotelli. One of the more colorful legends in Nord folklore is the tale of Olaf One-Eye and Numinex. Long ago, in the First Age, a fearsome dragon named Numinex ravaged the whole of Skyrim. The dreadful drake wiped out entire villages, burned cities, and killed countless Nords. It seemed that no power in Tamriel could stop the monster. This was a troubled time in Skyrim's history, for a bitter war of succession raged between the holds. The Jarls might have been able to conquer the beast if they had worked together, but trust was in desperately short supply. A skillful warrior named Olaf came forward and promised to defeat the beast. In some accounts, he is the Jarl of Whiterun. In other versions of the legend, Olaf promises the people of Whiterun that he will capture the monster if they will name him Jarl. At any rate, Olaf ventures forth with a handful of his most trusted warriors and seeks the beast out, eventually finding Numinex in his lair atop Mount Athor. Needless to say, it's an epic battle. First, Olaf comes at the dragon with his axe and his shield. Some variants of the legend say that Olaf and the beast battled with blade and claw for days, but were too evenly matched for either to gain an advantage. Most accounts hold that Olaf, perhaps frustrated that his weapons are completely ineffectual against the dragon, finally cast them aside. Giving voice to the rage that has been building within him, Olaf unleashes a terrible shout. Here again the stories diverge. Many accounts hold that Olaf did not realize he possessed the power of dragon speech, while others suggest that he had long possessed the gift, but wished to test himself against the dragon in martial combat first. Virtually all variations of the legend, however, agree on what happened next. Using the awesome powers of the dragon language, Numinex and Olaf engage in an epic shouting duel atop Mount Athor. So forceful are their words, they are said to shatter the stone and split the sky. Finally, Numinex collapses from a combination of injury and sheer exhaustion. Somehow, and this detail is conspicuously absent in virtually every account, Olaf manages to convey the dragon all the way back to the capital city of Whiterun. The people of Whiterun are suitably impressed with Olaf's hostage. They build a huge stone holding cell at the rear of the palace, which they rename Dragon's Reach. This enormous cell serves as Numinex's prison until his death. Olaf himself eventually becomes the High King of Skyrim, putting an end to the War of Succession. Presumably, his great deed made him the only leader upon whom all the people could agree, and so the land once again has peace. As a visitor to Skyrim, I find this tale both fascinating and highly entertaining. It is one of the most celebrated legends of the Nords, and one can easily understand why. It's a story of surpassing heroism, in which a resourceful and worthy Nord does battle with a truly terrifying adversary and emerges victorious by yelling him into submission. The only way in which this could have been even more of a Nordic tale would be if Olaf beat Numinex in a drinking contest. The legend is not without its doubters, however. The bard Svagnir, who lived during Olaf's reign, wrote and performed an alliterative verse that challenged Olaf's version of events. Enraged, the High King threw the rebellious bard in prison and destroyed all written copies of the verse. How I would love to lay hands on a copy of that verse. I admit I am immensely curious to know what assertions Svagnir made about how Olaf really defeated Numinex. There are a few ancient bard texts that provide one possible answer. These tomes suggest that Numinex was particularly foul-tempered because he was extremely old. In these accounts, the dragon spends his final years terrorizing the countryside before flying off to the top of Mount Athor to die in peace. When Olaf finds Numinex, the dragon is too weak to defend himself. Olaf and his men capture the beast without effort, but decide to take advantage of the situation by fabricating a heroic tale. It is worth noting that all of Olaf's warriors who were said to witness the Shout Duel went on to become wealthy leaders during Olaf's reign as High King. However, it is equally likely that Svagnir had some grudge against Olaf, and his scandalous verse was an attempt to damage the High King's reputation. Alas, we will never know. The Dragon War by Thorald Bjork. In the Merethic era, when Ysgramor first set foot on Tamriel, his people brought with them a faith that worshipped animal gods. Certain scholars believe these primitive people actually worshipped the divines as we know them, just in the form of these totem animals. They deify the hawk, wolf, snake, moth, owl, whale, bear, fox, and the dragon. Every now and then you can stumble across the broken stone totems in the further reaches of Skyrim. Foremost among all animals was the dragon. In the ancient Nordic tongue, it was Dragkon. Occasionally, the term Dov Ra is used, but the language or derivation of that is not known. using either name was forbidden to all except the dragon priests. Grand temples were built to honor the dragons and appease them. Many of them survive today as ancient ruins, haunted by draugr and undead dragon priests. Dragons, being dragons, embrace their role as god-kings over men. After all, were they not fashioned in Akatoshi's own image? Were they not superior in every way to the hordes of small, soft creatures that worshipped them? For dragons, power equals truth. They had the power, so therefore it must be truth. Dragons granted small amounts of power to the dragon priests in exchange for absolute obedience. In turn, the dragon priests ruled men as equals to the kings. Dragons, of course, could not be bothered with actually ruling. In Atmora, where Isgramor and his people came from, the dragon priests demanded tribute and set down laws and codes of living that kept peace between dragons and men. In Tamriel, they were not nearly as benevolent. It's unclear if this was due to an ambitious dragon priest, or a particular dragon, or a series of weak kings. Whatever the cause, the dragon priests began to rule with an iron fist, making virtual slaves of the rest of the population. When the populace rebelled, the dragon priests retaliated. When the dragon priests could not collect the tribute or control the masses, the dragon's response was swift and brutal. So it was the Dragon War began. At first, men died by the thousands. The ancient texts reveal that a few dragons took the side of men. Why they did this is not known. The priests of the 9 divines claim it was Akatosh himself that intervened. From these dragons, men learned magics to use against dragons. The tide began to turn, and dragons began to die too. The war was long and bloody. The dragon priests were overthrown, and dragons were slaughtered in large numbers. The surviving dragons scattered, choosing to live in remote places away from men. The dragon cult itself adapted and survived. They built the dragon mounds, entombing the remains of dragons that fell during the war. They believed that one day the dragons would rise again and reward the faithful. There Be Dragons by Thorald Bjork. The last known sighting of a dragon in Tamriel was in the time of Tiber Septim. He made a pact with a few remaining dragons, swearing to protect them if they would serve him. Despite his promise, dragons were still hunted and slain. It's not clear if the last ones fled Tamriel or if they were exterminated. There is no credible story of how dragons came to be. According to Dremora, that the College of Whispers have questioned, they just were and are, eternal, immortal, unchanging, and unyielding. They are not born or hatched. They do not mate or breed. There are no known examples of dragon eggs or dragonlings. The Iliac Bay area has stories of such things, but so far all have proven false. The eggs turn out to be eggs of other reptiles. The small dragons were merely oversized lizards and no relation to true dragons. Although they are not born, dragons can die. During the Dragon War of the Merethic era, their numbers were decimated. The Akaviri invaders of the late First Era are said to have hunted and killed scores of them before and after their defeat by Emperor Reman. Some sources say the Akaviri brought over dragon-killing spells. Others claim they built cunning traps. One tale even speaks of a rare poison. It is well accepted that a dragon's most fearsome weapon is its fiery breath. Because they could fly overhead and rain down flaming death, archers and wizards were necessary when hunting them. It is less well known that some dragons could breathe a freezing spray of frost. The reports indicate that dragons might do one or the other, but not both. Most people think of dragons as mere beasts. However, logically, they must have had language in order for Tiber Septim to have negotiated with them. Indeed, the historical record is quite clear that dragons were highly intelligent. They had their own language, but could also speak the languages of men and elves. The records of Reman's hunts contain reports of dragons that breathe or spit fire. Recently, some were unearthed that described dragons blowing freezing blasts of cold. The more fanciful tales have them summoning storms and even stopping time. These should be discounted as myths and fairy tales. Even without this most fearsome weapon, their nearly impenetrable hide and granite-like teeth and claws made them terrifying opponents. There is some confusion over when the last dragon was killed. It seems the last few vanished all at once. Some tales speak of a dragon king who devoured all of them rather than let mankind kill them. One of the more far-fetched stories has Tiber Septim absorbing their essences when he ascended to godhood. Although the exact cause is unknown, they are all gone. No dragon has been seen for centuries. There are a few known examples of dragon bones fused with the stone and rocks of cliffs and caves. Just enough proof to make the stories undeniable. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And maybe check my other ASMR gaming videos. The links should be on the screen and in the description. Until next time, take care and stay relaxed. Bye bye.